Hello everyone, I am Left, and welcome to another video today, and today we're going to be talking about Idris. He's one of my top 3 favorite lore characters in all of Vainglory, and he became a hero when Adagio infused him with the divine power to defend his people from the Churn. If you didn't know already, the Churn is basically Vainglory's lore equivalent of Hell. It's where all like the bad monsters come from and stuff. So Idris is a pretty recent release as a hero, and he's seen little to no competitive play since he came out. When he first released, I found him really awkward to play and hard to learn. His perk can be really confusing for new players, and his power arc in the game is really strange. So today we're going to be talking about Weapon Idris, because I don't actually find CP to be viable at all. Idris's position is really one of the strangest things about him. If you select him in a casual match, his recommended position is lane carry. However, I feel like he functions much better as a jungler. But before we talk about that, let's go over his abilities for anybody who may not have him unlocked. Using Shroud Step allows Idris to dash in the target direction, dealing amplified damage to the next target he attacks within 4 seconds. This amplified attack scales with weapon power, and if you activate the weapon portion of your perk, Shroud Step becomes an instant blink. Also, if you have not taken damage within the last 4.5 seconds, Shroud Step grants you a 3.5 second health barrier. The availability of the barrier is displayed below the stamina meter. So, Shroud Step is one of the things that makes Idris Idris. It allows him to quickly dodge enemy skills and basically shift through the battlefield swiftly like a ninja basically, and that's kind of what he is anyways. So that's Shroud Step. Chakram is his second ability. Fun fact, Chakram is actually it's a hallmark weapon of the ancient Indonesian people. Well, that's what I read on Wikipedia. But anyways, Chakram throws a Chakram that returns to him, damaging enemies each time it passes over them. So if you chain this correctly, it will hit the enemies twice. That is, if they don't move. Hitting enemy heroes, miners, or Kraken recovers 15 stamina. Idris can time his Shroud Step and Shimmer Strike abilities to temporarily keep his Chakrams in the air longer. I have a little clip of me doing that after we talk about its ultimate. But you should probably know about Chakram. It scales 100% with weapon power and 125% with crystal power. But still, that 100% weapon power is nothing to turn your nose up at. It still does quite a bit of damage even if you're building weapon. So lastly, let's talk about his ultimate, Shimmer Strike. Idris disappears into the target hero and becomes invulnerable and untargetable. If you actually slow down Shimmer Strike, it's like he disappears into the ground in a puff of sand and like tumbles towards the enemy and latches onto them. But this is one of the coolest ultimates in the game, by the way. I love this ultimate so much. While you are attached, you tap to make Idris leap away from the enemy in the targeted direction, striking all surrounding enemies with weapon damage as you jump off. It doesn't say right here, but building crystal power increases the distance that Idris jumps away from his enemy, whereas weapon power increases the damage. If no direction is chosen, Idris will jump toward his original position. You can latch onto enemies for 1.2 seconds or allies for 2.8 seconds, so there are a lot of different uses for this ultimate. But now that we've talked about the basic abilities, let me show you a couple of more advanced uses for Chakram and Shroud Step. As I said before, using your skills while Chakram is in the air will allow it to stay in the air and will hit more enemies over and over and over. So I can chain it, I can make it go farther, I can make it swing by me more times. You can make it hit the enemies 3, even 4 times if you chain it with Shimmer Strike, but there's no enemies in a bot match, so I can't really chain it with Shimmer Strike. Just showing you right there that you can dash with Shroud Step to make your Chakram stay in the air longer and thus do more damage to the enemies. One really important thing to note while playing Idris is that if you have a target selected already when you activate Shroud Step, the empowered basic attack does itself. It will activate itself. You don't have to do any extra taps. So keep that in mind when you're using Shroud Step. It will activate itself if you already have a target acquired. This little clip right here is just to show you that Shimmer Strike can go over walls and how good it is when you chain it with the Chakram. So yeah, we just get the kill on Fortress right there, or Fortress and Baptiste. Going to slow it down for you guys just so you can see my thought process here. Going to first activate Shroud Step, grab a nice barrier, hit the empowered attack onto Fortress. And where Lance is going to stun the fortress against the wall, this sets him up for a really good double impale that is only going to multiply the damage of my Chakram. Now, I see that they're a little bit in my range, and over the wall, I can hit Baptiste with Shimmer Strike, dealing damage to both him and Fortress, and lessening the effect of the Fountain on Fortress, allowing us to get a kill on him. Getting all of the potential damage you can out of Idris relies on some very complicated and dexterous skill combos. As you saw right there, I was able to execute a solo kill onto Baptiste with no help from my team. So I'm going to slow this down for you guys while I talk about the expertise that is required to get kills with Idris. His kit by itself is just awkward to play with, but if you are actually able to combo his skills right, you can do so much burst damage if you're doing it coinciding with one of your power spikes. You see I've landed the empowered basic attack, 2 Chakram hits, and a Shimmer Strike at full power onto the Baptiste, and it's just an instant kill. Even if he had had defense, I would have been able to finish him off with a basic attack. Idris excels at 1v1 play against mages, and it's really good. It's a really good idea to exploit that when you're playing against mages like Baptiste, Celeste, Scarf, things like that, because your Shroud Step and Shimmer Strike can dodge very important and tough to dodge otherwise skills like Heliogenesis, Core Collapse, Solar Storm, Goop, Dragon Breath, Spitfire, literally anything. The only thing I couldn't dodge right there was the Ordained, because, I mean, I was so fast that he was only able to land Ordained before I killed him. I mean, it doesn't really matter that Ordained stunned me, but just saying that Idris relies a lot on skill combos. Idris's true position and purpose are the most muddled to me in terms of him just existing in the game. Is he a bruiser? Is he a burst assassin? Is he a sustain assassin? All of these classifications present problems for Idris, and each one in a different way. Glaive makes a better bruiser simply because Afterburn exists and he has inherent lifesteal, and a large health pool. Taka and Koshka make better burst assassins because of their respective speed boosts on hit and high crystal ratios. Blackfeather makes a better sustained assassin due to his execution ability and his consistent durability with on point. All of these heroes that I've mentioned also have something that Idris doesn't that I didn't mention, and something that I think is responsible for the awkward feeling of playing Idris if you're not very good with him. He completely lacks any speed boost. Now, when you think assassin, now I know there aren't any solid positions anymore, but Taka, Koshka, Blackfeather, Idris, they were all marketed as assassin position heroes when they were releasing. So I'm still going to be calling them an assassin here, just for that fact. I think that this could be fixed in 2 ways. One, you could have the cooldown of Shroud Step, making him sort of like Zed from League of Legends, allowing a skilled Idris player to consistently dodge attacks through the use of blinks. Or you could keep the cooldown the same, but give Idris a movement speed boost upon blinking. I think that change would kind of work too. Another change I would propose is a slight increase in basic attack range. As of now, when you're playing Idris, it feels like he has 0 range as weapon other than his Chakram. Now, actually, he has 2.4 range, which is in line or better than most melee heroes. Why this feels wrong is because Idris has no speed boost and he has no direct and upfront burst to warrant getting in that close. Faint of Heart, Pouncy Fun, and Xretsu fulfill this requirement for other heroes. If Idris means to get in close, he will have to solo ult you or waste his only dodging ability. This leaves no room for error when an Idris player decides to go into a melee fight, in contrast with other more forgiving heroes like Grumpjaw or Utility Glaive. It also leaves Idris with no way to dodge Atlas Pauldrons other than Reflex Block, and blocking Atlas Pauldrons as a skill is almost entirely relegated to the Vainglorious and above. This short range, in conjunction with no upfront burst or speed boost, puts him at a huge disadvantage against heroes like Lance, because a single hit from Gythian Wall puts him further out of his effective range than other heroes would be. Overall, Idris seems to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. I'm sure you've heard that figure of speech before, but he's proficient on taking on mages in a 1v1, as most assassins are. His Shimmer Strike allows him to completely dodge important CC and ultimates. That's something not all assassins can say, besides maybe Taka. But you really need to be careful if you're going to take on snipers in a 1v1. Snipers meaning Ringo, Gwen, Saw. Slows and stuns hurt Idris a lot more than any other heroes due to his seemingly low basic attack range, and a good Gwen or Ringo player can take you out in seconds. Idris is actually pretty good at kiting backwards, and he can even fight from complete range and only range to harass enemies regardless of their position. This is a characteristic that is very abnormal for the melee class of hero. He's pretty unique in this ability, and it all stems from Chakram. Overzealous enemies could easily find themselves dead after chasing Idris in a straight line, since Chakram does great damage as weapon or crystal. As for builds, I have found two to be sufficient. If the enemy is relying a lot on healing, I use Sorrow Blade, Poison Shiv, and Breaking Point in that order. If the enemy does not rely on healing, I like to use Sorrow Blade, Breaking Point, Serpent's Mask in that order. Of course, you should always be buying sufficient defense as your build runs its course. Overall, I think Idris takes a shitload of skill to play correctly, and releasing his full value relies on a combination of extremely dexterous and complicated skill combos. Very few people have unlocked this full potential with him so far. He almost functions to punish unexperienced players that don't know when to engage and disengage, but that's not all you have to master to do well with Idris. You need a combination of mechanical dexterity and extreme game sense in order to first know your time to dive, and second, hit your ultimate skill combo during that dive to achieve fatal bursts of damage. Now, exactly what am I talking about when I say ultimate skill combo? Think back to the clip where I was killing Baptiste there, except make that, I don't know, a little bit harder. Like, Baptiste is a tougher enemy, he's a different hero, has more health, has more armor. I would probably need to dash in with my Shroud Step barrier, get off a couple of basic attacks to start to reset the cooldown of Shroud Step, then throw a Chakram, let it hit him once, Shimmer Strike onto the guy, let the Chakram go back, Shimmer Strike off behind the guy, let the Chakram hit him 3 times, and then use another Shroud Step. Like, Idris is that complicated. You're not going to be able to play him as easily as you play somebody like Glaive or Jewel or Taka or Blackfeather. He's just so complicated. They made him to be that complicated, and that's just his weapon path. Like, his crystal path is an entirely different beast. So, if you are all, like, super interested in his crystal path, I know I am not very interested in his crystal path. It just seems underwhelming to me overall. So, if for some reason you guys really want me to talk about his crystal path as well, maybe I'll consider doing that. I just find crystal unviable and boring. But that's going to be it for this video on Weapon Power Idris, you guys. I hope you all enjoyed and learned a lot of useful information about Idris. So I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.